It is with great nerdy excitement that I welcome you here today. And I'm joined by some incredible folks. So we have lead developer Sarah Northway, who runs Northway Games and did lead game design and direction for I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. We have writer Lindsay Ishihiro, who is a writer and comic artist and the creator of comics Mother Lover and How Baby. And artist May, an illustrator and character artist who did character art, sprites, and animation for our beloved I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. This is a big turnout. This is more people than I was expecting. Thanks for coming.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Super fun. I'm so excited. Also, May is hanging out in the chat. So welcome. We saw all of the questions coming in over the last couple of weeks in the Ask the Devs channel that we have set up. We combined them, did our best to capture as many as we possibly could, tried to keep them spoiler-ish free. So some of those more specific questions that y'all asked about very specific things, you might need to just discuss amongst yourselves. But we do have a bunch of questions to go through today. So we're going to get started with that. My first question is for you, Sarah. What was the initial inspiration for I Was a Teenage Exocolonist? And how did your ideas evolve over time?
I don't know if everybody knows, but this game was in development for 5 years. So it started in 2017. And by the time we got to the end of it, I had kind of a vague memory of how it started, but it just changed. It did change quite a bit through the whole thing. So I went and found my original notes and was kind of surprised at some of the stuff that was in there from August 2017 when I first started it. The funniest note is there's a bunch of space, and then it says 2 years ! Which I think was me trying to, convince myself that this was going to be a 2-year game, not a 5-year game, which it became. Yeah. So that was right at the beginning. No, how wrong I very much was. So yeah, honestly, there was a lot of different ideas at the very beginning. So you guys might know that Exocolonist is spiritually inspired by Princess Maker, which is an old Japanese kind of, it's like a JRPG where you raise a princess. It's kind of, part dating sim and part, all these different things. So it's a life sim, right? It's one of those stats raising life sims. So I wanted that. That was always the core of this game, was you're going to have different paths that you can take in life. And I wanted, instead of you kind of maybe creepily raising a little girl, you are the princess. So actually in the code, the word soul is always referred to as princess. So that was always in the core, but man, it was going to be like a farming simulator. It was going to be a base builder. It was going to be, you were going to have a whole bunch of colonies, every year a new one, and then you would design it. And it's just all this weird stuff that very quickly the design kind of pushed a lot of that aside to make room for more story, right? Because it would have taken 10 years if I actually did all of it. So it got focused down to something that we were going to do all those things. We were going to explore farming on an alien planet. We were going to explore, combat with crazy creatures, but it was all going to be through the narrative instead. And so it got and then over time, especially once Lindsay came on as an artist initially, but then became a writer. And then the two of us just blew the scale of it up. So so it got all pared down, and then the narrative got exploded. So that's kind of what happened over the course of 5 years.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm just going to say right now, I would play an Exocolonist farm sim. So an idea for the future. I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely spin-off ideas, tons of spin-off ideas in that old document.
So Sarah, you made your own scripting language for the game called Exoscript. Can you explain a little bit about what that is and why you thought it was necessary for Exocolonist?
Yeah. Okay. So, right. So as our narrative was growing and growing, and I knew it wasn't just going to be me working on it. I figured we need something, some way to be able to do choice-based narratives. So these are like branching narratives. You need to write it somehow in a way that kind of feels like a little more like plain English than code. So I'd done branching narrative events in previous games, and they were mostly just written like actually in the code. So you would have need to be a programmer to like make a new event. But it's also just a pain in the butt. You have to stop the game, compile the game. So I wanted something that was just going to be free flowing, easy, separate, but also really embedded into our game engine, which is Unity. And there were some around at the time. Inkle is a really good one. Ink, if anybody, their scripting language is called Ink. If anybody is thinking of doing this themselves, like making a game, you should just use that one because it's gotten really good. But yeah, at the time, like nothing quite worked the way that like my brain worked. And part of me just really wanted to write a giant parser system and my own scripting language and all this stuff. I don't know, it's just a thing I've always wanted to do. So it was easy to start, and then it just went and went. And I'm just was very lucky that like Lindsay's brain works the same way that my brain does. And yeah, Lindsay could just like get in there and understand this language as well. And we had it all syntax highlighted, which was kind of fun. The fan community actually went and like made little syntax highlighting plugins so that you can like edit ExoScript and write your own stories using any kind of text editor now, and like see all the highlighting for like the gestural changes that people make, and like sound cues and the weird cool effects. Like all of that can just be set right there in the text as you're writing your dialogue. So
And it was
I don't
really
know.
useful too during development that I could go to you and I could be like, I need it to do this. And you could be like, oh yeah, sure, give me a day.
Yeah,
And then blah, 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 you'd be like, and you use this line of code, and then all of a sudden I would be able to be like, show this avatar, show this asset if this thing happened in the past, but don't show it if she's dead. So it's like I could ask you for stuff, and you could be like, and it's in there now, rather than being like, I don't know, how do I go into everything? Like ink is so powerful now. And it was like, well, we don't need all of that. We just need to know this very specific thing. So
yeah, it's very like laser tailor-made.
A huge achievement and very, very cool. Lindsay, what made you excited to step into this role of helping to write the game? And did you expect it to be so big when you took it on?
Gosh, EXO came at like exactly the right perfect time in my life. It was the summer of 2019, and game dev being game dev, I had just been laid off from my last studio job. And it was really like a friend of a friend, like, hey, my friend is looking for background art. And I looked at the background art and I said, oh, I couldn't possibly, but perhaps I could help another way. And may happen to need some backup art for doing the creature sprites. And so I just sort of fell into being like, oh, I'll take on this job to make it to the school year when I'm probably going to transition back to being a stay-at-home parent. And I did it. I was really happy to have it and just be like, oh, that was a nice little contract. And then I ended up seeing Sarah at PAX, and we went for coffee. And Sarah said, I have to start writing this game. I have 1,000 events to write. I don't know where to start. Like the plot is kind of there, but I don't know how it ends, and I don't have all of the world building. And I was like, hey, I'm a writer. Maybe I could help you. And Sarah said, well, maybe. And then come January, after I'd finished the creature art and we'd come to know each other a little bit more, I got onboarded as an artist. As the writer. And we started just me doing the love events. And Sarah had this idea that it was just going to be just really basic, kind of like the Stardew Valley love events, where you see a nice little scene because you've reached a new level of affection with someone. And I guess I sort of realized as I was writing that I didn't know anything about the world, and come from fanfic. And so my skill set is, oh, but you didn't say anything about that, so I'm going to write it. And so I started doing that, and I just started writing more and more into the corners of the world. And Sarah just started giving me like more and more rope. And so just by doing that, I gradually sort of like wrote into all of the like things that needed to be written, and just answered all my own questions and came up with more questions and posted some weird questions to Sarah in our DMs, basically like, hey, how about this? And so that was a really, really fun experience that I just sort of like eased into getting this like ability to just write. And so that was what was really exciting about the game. And definitely as I was writing it, I was just writing, and then as I was writing, COVID happened and we went into lockdown basically almost immediately after I started writing. And so I was writing in a very isolated sense of just like, there's nothing else going on in my life. Like literally everything stopped and I only am writing this game. And I didn't have any access to the outside world. I didn't really have any like networking connections at the time because it was my first game writing gig. And I didn't know what to expect, having no games behind me, having no experience. I was just being like, I'm just writing like I'm writing a fanfic. And one of the like formative memories that sort of lodged into my brain is I was writing the event that happens on your 15th birthday if your mom is alive. And I sent it to Sarah, and Sarah's comment back to it was all like, hey, like, this is award-winning writing. Like, when this is all said and done, maybe this is going to be really cool. Like, maybe this is really going to hit. And it was the first time that I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I am okay at this. Maybe this is going to be okay. But I mean, I was worried right until the game launched, basically. It was just like, oh, what if I was terrible? So the reception that the fans have given and incredible things people have said, and other game devs coming up and being like, yeah, this was good. Welcome to the fold. Oh, it's been really, really nice. So, yeah.
That is amazing and inspiring and honestly making me kind of emotional on a Friday.
I'm always emotional at Exocolonist. It was such a huge like life event for me to be able to work on this game and to be trusted to work on this game. So it's like really important to me.
It was such a journey, especially over COVID. Like, I mean, your responsibilities and your, hours and stuff were just out of control. Like how much effort you were putting into everything. I mean, I think a lot of people threw themselves into their work. Like I definitely did the same thing,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, it was like a feverish time, like just like writing the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you wrote like 6 books in a year and a bit.
Yeah, it was 18 months.
Words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Wow.
Time stopped for you to write Exocolonist.
It did. It was really the perfect storm.
So, I mean, a testament to the work that both of you did. People have fallen in love with the characters in the game, and it's me. I'm people. What was the process like for forming their personalities and their character arcs, and how would they contribute to the main storylines of the game?
So the very earliest, like the crystal, of each character, like we set up like pretty early. Like it was in my early documents. I'm actually going to write a blog post about this so you guys could read about it. I think later today I'm going to post it. But like there's a surprising amount of like fundamental kind of ideas about the characters, which is like written down just kind of at a quick like offhand way where I'm just like, oh, we just need these archetypes, let's put them together. And they were a little stereotypical, right? Like I still think of Cal as he's just like the strong, simple farmer, he's just like a sweet, simple farming man. But yeah, then over time, over this like, long period, many words, and Lindsay doing, not just one pass at them, but like fitting them into the world, figuring out how the characters are like, yeah, we did some sensitivity readings. So we like adjusted some things. But yeah, it was over time, the characters really, they did change quite a bit. You should talk more about that. That was really you. I feel like I like started it. I passed it over to May. May's like May's character art did define a lot of like the character personalities too. And then we were just like,
Yeah.
Like, Lindsay, take it.
I feel like the characters didn't like. I've previewed the blog post that Sarah's talking about and seeing all of the development stuff that she was putting through. I never saw some of this. It just came fully through May's art and what you had just told me verbally. Like I didn't know from the very beginning some of these character traits. It's just sort of like osmosed from my brain to from your brain to mine, which is incredible. So I don't think any of the characters. There were some minor changes, but none of the characters changed so much as really became deeper. Like I kept on finding more ways that they connected, and not just with themselves, but also with the world and with also the plot. Like 3 different ways of like connection. I know that sometimes people look at the characters and like there's 2 camps in the reviews. Some of the camps are these characters are so well fleshed out and they're so unique, and then there's an entire other camp that are like, these characters are just archetypes. How boring is that? And I don't know, I think that's kind of a strength. Like, yeah, we took the archetype, but we dug real deep in and we like really peeled back everything about that archetype, and we're like, what's the very cool thing down here that makes it universally relevant, which was really, really fun. Sorry, the negative reviews are simply wrong. The negative reviews are also, they're useful. They're useful to know. And honestly, they've been very kind as well. So that's very nice to see. About the characters that changed, definitely like I struggled a bit with Dees because like Dees was just like, he's the loner. And I had to really get into, well, why? Like, why is he the loner? And sort of like, how does he change? A turning point for Dees, for example, was, oh, you're all going to learn how to say the words, how I pronounce the names. It's Dees. Hi, it's, yeah. So trying to figure out Dees' turning point, and it's like, oh, well, he went into exploring, and he turned from this like, angsty child to someone who was like actually supported by his like career and the people around him. Even if he didn't understand it at the time, they were like helping. They were like helping, to bring him out of his shell. And so seeing him come into his own and sort of realize his like fear of death and how that changed the way he viewed everything was neat. Because like Sarah would throw these like details at me, being like, this kid's not scared of death. And I was like, that's cool, I love that. And then as I'd be writing it, I'd be like, oh, that means he also blank, or that means that he's scared of this instead, or like, what is the difference between being scared of death versus being scared of public speaking or being rejected, and how that would affect someone. So there was a lot of different times like that. Yeah. Another one that changed was Mars. Like for Mars was like, be this confident character. And I was like, cool. For me personally, confidence is also like a sexual confidence, being like, I know what I want and I'm going to get it. And so those 2 things came together, and I ended up writing with this idea of like adult Mars getting what she wants, and then having to pull back and being like, oh, but she's also in this event, she's also sometimes 14, or she could be 12, because the events are modular. And it was like, oh, I need to pull that back a lot. And then Sensitivity Reader came in and was all like, did you guys realize that you made the darkest skin colors really sexual? And we were like, no, we didn't, because they came from 2 different directions. Like I was coming from like confidence is like confidence in yourself and like, open sexuality. And it's just like, oh, we did do that actually. And so we kind of like, went more towards like her political career and her like self-confidence. And so that happens. Thank you to our sensitivity readers. Sometimes you make things and they are completely, you didn't mean to do that, but you can accidentally, convergent evolution, come towards something that you didn't mean.
It's so great hearing about that part of the process, because I think it's so incredibly important. And I love hearing about the ways that the characters have evolved. I need to take just like the smallest break to acknowledge May's incredible art. It is the cutest thing I've ever seen, and it's not even done yet. I'm going to need it on like a mug, on a t-shirt. It's as a plushie. It's so cute. One of the questions that came up again and again and again from folks excited to hear about it was, how did you decide their augments? This is the people want to know.
Right, right. Well, augments weren't in it right at the beginning. I think a lot of them kind of came about while May was doing the art for them. Like I had ideas for what to do, and I wanted all their augments to be something that would kind of, help them in their future life, like them specifically. So like for Anemone, I didn't know at first. I was kind of like, she's going to be sporty, and then she's going to be, tough. She needs something to protect her, or maybe. So we were thinking like cat-like agility, maybe like cat legs, and she's fast, or scaly armor to protect her. And then the scaly armor just like looked way cooler, and we liked the idea that it was kind of like acne, that it might like irritate her as it comes in. So we went with that instead, and then the cat legs ended up on Utopia instead, because Utopia fast and agile to be able to do to be an explorer. So there were a lot of characters like that I feel like I slowly came around to it, and especially like once we had art and we're actually looking at the art for them, like it worked out. But yeah, I feel like a lot of them are just obvious in retrospect, like right, like Mars has no sense of shame, which like seems like a bad thing, but it just means that she's like honest, and she can say what she wants and get what she wants, and she can just like go out and do that. But also it kind of hints at the fact that she's a politician, and sometimes they just do things and move on with it, and they're not as humble as maybe they should be or whatever. But it's just it's part of that, like, public speaking confidence. But yeah, and then at the same time, like not having a fear of death, like that helps you a lot if you want to be an explorer doing dangerous things, but it also will bring in all kinds of questions. Like I wanted them all to be a little good, a little bad, right? Like Anemone's is super itchy and annoying, but also protects her. Who else we have?
I like Nems because realizing partway through that Nems augment means she can't be hurt in the same place twice,
Right.
which loops back into her character arc, and I was just like, oh,
totally.
Sometimes you hit on something and you're like, oh, it feels so good.
That's so good. Yeah, it's so fun. Definitely some of them came later. Vases was like there from the start. I know you guys were asking whether Vases is what you think it is. Yes, it is. I mean, the reason is because he's kind of a dick. So that's why.
I definitely was responsible for censoring it in the art book to be physical perfection, because I was like, okay, what would his parents have actually been like? We're going to call it this. Yeah,
exactly.
So, I couldn't bring myself to say, Bigelous Dickless face in the art book. I couldn't. Yeah.
That one is just so funny. Yeah. I mean, that was completely just for jokes.
Yeah. Same with Baculum.
We have to call out May's comment. In my concept art, there's a note on Vase saying, "Has a nice ass?" ?
You see, he had to be hot. Like as I was writing Vase, I knew, like, I had just finished playing Outer Worlds, I think, when I started Exocolonist, and there's this character in there who's like a fake like pastor, and he's very like, oh yes, I'm very, very good, and but I'm also a sexy bad man. And I hate this character archetype. I hated this man, and I was like, why does anyone love him? And then I went to Archive of Our Own afterwards, and I was like, tell me what's being written, and it was entirely this guy, original female character self inserts, and I was like, I don't understand. So when I was writing Vase, I was like, there's going to be people who are like, I love the sexy bad man. I have to write for those people. And so I did. So there's reasons why sometimes Vase is like a sexy bad man. And you're like, yeah, I can see that he's a dick, but I can fix him, or I can make him worse. So yes, I am talking about the Vicar.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Lindsay, I know you already sort of touched on this, but I want to pass it just in case anybody else has anything to say about it or you wanted to add to it. Were there any characters that felt harder to write than others, or harder to design than others?
Harder to write than others. I think everyone was. I was really lucky when I started because I had this idea and I could write whatever I wanted. And so I would start with this completely blank slate. And at the start of every writing, it was the hardest character I've ever had to write. And I'd get a couple events in and I'd be like, oh, this is my friend. This is my friend. I know what my friend would do now. So it was very like character centric. And anytime I wanted the character to sort of like change or do something, I could then change the world to make that possible. And so I was really lucky in that, like, there was with every character, it was like, this is really difficult. All of a sudden, it's really easy because they're my friend and I know what they would do. Every time I wrote a character, I'd be like, this is my new favorite character. Chao was the first character I wrote. Vase was the last character I wrote. The Vase to Asterian pipeline. Oh, Jesus. I haven't played Baldur's Gate yet, but I know that I'm going straight for Asterian when I do. No spoilers in chat, please. So the hardest character I think to write was probably Dees, just because he connected so much with different elements of the world, and definitely he has the most difficult event I ever had to write, which was the event when you find him again in the forest, and Sim can be there, and that event was just the hardest thing to write. Because you can go in with so many different like world states, and then you can make so many decisions inside that. Sorry, my phone's ringing. You can make so many decisions inside that event, and then you can spread out into so many different world states after that. So just writing those logic gates and those loops was impossible. Probably the only one that was second to that was probably the event where Rex approaches you and is all like, I like to kiss you. What's up with that? Because that was like polyamory negotiations. Like, if regular polyamory negotiations are difficult, this was polyamory negotiations where there are multiple concurrent world states at any given time. Like, if you think it's hard when everyone comes in with their own opinions, everyone comes in with 12 different opinions and they all interact with each other. So that was impossible. It's like, is he already dating Mars? What year is this happening? How old are you? Are you dating anyone else? Have you found Nomi yet? So all of that. So hard. There were a lot of just tortured DMs to Sarah being like, why am I doing this? Thank you so much for letting me do this, but I understand why no one does this. So yeah.
Yeah, some of those were tricky. Yeah, like really hard. Yeah, and there was always like little bugs too. We found so much during our playtest that we did back in like the end of 2021. Man,
Yeah.
thanks to if there's any playtesters out there today, thank you so much for your help. Just finding those cases where it was like, but you're dating Mars right now, and it's like, oh God, yes, of course, that does change this.
Yeah, I always thought that when I had to eventually stop writing, because at some point I had to stop writing, I handed off all these files to Sarah, and I was like, I'm sorry. Have fun. I haven't done like a final read. Have fun. And so the QA and all of our beta testers are wonderful and caught so many of my mistakes. And I'm so grateful because there was no way. It was like, what about this edge case? And I'm like, I didn't even think of that. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the two of us could never have done it. Like, we needed the whole QA team. We needed playtesters, and we needed some, a few more after release helpers.
Yeah.
People thankfully finding stuff, because there's just tiny stuff, right? Just like little tiny one-liners, like, oh, these 3 words don't make sense if this is the state, right? Like, just many. But you managed so much of it, like, seriously.
I introduced a lot of problems. I solved a few.
There's a reason that people like don't write games this way, though. That like that like so many games will not attempt. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely one of the things that came up after we released that apparently no one had caught, maybe because it seemed on purpose, was you used to not be able to date Tangent until after the culmination of her arc. And then we realized, oh, we need a couple more triggers in here to date Tangent because you might not want to do her whole arc and you still might want to date her. And so when I wrote the event where you are in the siege and you go and you see Mars and Tangent, there's an if in there that it's like, if you're dating Mars, you'll go off and you'll go have private time with Mars. But the only other thing was like, else, Mars and Tangent go away. And so there was a moment in there where it was all like, okay, but what if you're dating Tangent? And when I wrote it, you weren't able to date Tangent, so I didn't need to code it in. But by the time the game released, you could. And so people were reporting, it's like, Tangent cheats on me during the siege. And no, we don't ever talk about that. Like, we don't ever talk about the fact that Tangent cheats on me. It's like, that wasn't intended to happen. That was just, whoops.
Yeah, every tiny thing that changed during the editing process was just like an absolute, like, butterfly wing effect. Like, just so many different things would have to then be tested or changed or whatever.
It's like, your code works, but does it really, narratively, does it make sense? It's like, oh, well, yeah. And no surprise that got past the QA, because it could have literally just been like, yeah, Tangent does cheat on you.
Yeah, could have made sense.
Yeah.
It feels very fitting for the game that like changing one small thing has impact. I kind of love that.
Yeah.
And I personally would love to one day see your notes for writing this game. I can imagine them. They must be, if I were you, I would have like an entire wall of charts.
Yeah.
All in there. There are no notes.
All in the brain.
For the most part. Yeah. It's just like
incredible.
Yeah. It's just up there. Hopefully still up there. I don't know. I feel like I've forgotten a good chunk already, which is not good.
Definitely part of it has been supplanted by just seeing people talk about the game and like applying their own headcanons and being like, oh yeah, absolutely. I thought that at the time. It's like, I didn't, like, maybe I had an idea, but like, and then I was really looking forward to when the game released and my fandom kin, like my people getting to the game and being like, hey, did you think about this? What about this? And me being like, no, but that makes perfect sense. Like, I'm so excited for that to happen, and I'm so excited it did.
We were talking about this before we, came live on here, just about how incredible the fan art community is, the fanfic community, like breathing incredible, additional life into a game that is already incredibly alive. I love seeing it. And I think one of the many reasons that this game resonates with so many people is because it has incredible representation in it. It won an award for authentic representation at the Gaming Awards. What was the intention, or was the intention from the outset to create a game that was representative of so many identities? Did it evolve during development? And were there any identities that you really wanted to make sure ended up in the game, and why? I know that's a lot of questions, but we could take it step by step.
I can tell you how it started, which was definitely that was going to be like a thing that I wanted in it from the beginning, was to have, diverse identities, one of everybody in the way that we do archetypes, but like, just I wanted everyone to feel represented and I wanted everyone to be there. But it really was it was May and Lindsay that like added a lot of the like extra diversity to it. Like, I'd thought about poly relationships, like, some people want to date you and date someone else. I hadn't thought about it as like the properly, I don't know what you want to say, but like the properly constrained poly, like we're in an agreement. This is a, multi-person relationship thing. And that was all Lindsay. And I think making Nomi non-binary might have been May during the character design. I think so. And maybe also making Tangent trans? I think possibly. So yeah, so like I was like on paper I want to do it, and then when I started writing it out, I was not nearly as diverse enough. It was totally you guys. But like Lindsay, you can talk more about this. You were the one who actually fleshed all that out.
It was really a really wonderful experience because when I came in, like I have multiple marginalized identities, and so when I came in, it wasn't that I wanted necessarily to like do by a committee with a checklist and being like, my cast has to be diverse. It was just like, well, I'm going to write the way I'm going to write. I'm going to write the people that I know. I'm going to write the people that I love. I'm going to write the communities that I'm in. And that just sort of like happened naturally. And it was really, really gratifying as a writer to be constantly like showing Sarah my like cool shiny rocks and being like, can I put this in the game? And Sarah being like, yes, absolutely. Tell me more about that. So that was just really nice. Like, every time I came to Sarah, I was like, so what if this poly thing happened? Or what if this, what if we explored Tang, her trans identity in this way? I say Tang because I wrote Tang over and over, but I totally understand people who say Tange. You're correct. I say it the way I say it. I'm probably incorrect, but
I say Tang. Tang
I
is
say yeah, definitely because I wrote all the time. Yes, so many what ifs, and Sarah just being like, yeah, absolutely, go put it in. So that was really really nice. One that I was really gratified to put in is the relationship between Rex and Nomi, because the idea of just like an aromantic character and an asexual / demisexual character, sort of like finding the way that they work together and finding sort of like validation and love in their relationship with each other, but also being able to express their identities in ways that feel comfortable for them was like, it was really, really nice. I was able to run that past one of my friends who actually is in a similar relationship with a similar structure and be like, does this feel good? And hearing back from them that it was just like, oh, it's just really, really nice to be able to have that interaction in the game and have it feel right. That was one I really wanted to make sure felt right. And yeah, I'm glad that it did. Yeah.
I love so much.
Yeah, that one ended up so wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you describe it as like these are just your friends. This is just your community. Because when I recommend this game to people, I always say like you can see yourself in it, but you can see your people in it. Like it feels like a love letter to queer communities in general. So I love to hear you say that. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say the same thing that, when people accuse us of being woke or something, it does just feel kind of dumb because it's like, no, I'm just writing about literally like my community and my friends, and this is the thing. We try to be woke in the ways that like we're a little more blind to, like all the colonialism stuff, but which like we're learning, right? We're learning like through this process and everything. But I definitely feel like just in terms of people's identities, like, this is just our community. This is just our friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely coming into it just being like, this is just what I want to write. And, if you call it the way it is, it's like, well, make your own games. It's like they tell us to make our own games and then we did. And it's like, not like that. It's like, this is the game we made. I'm so sorry. So, yeah.
This art is amazing, May. I didn't know that I needed to see it, but I needed to see it, and it's incredible. One specific question that we did have from I don't remember who. Sorry, folks wanted to know whether you had any specific disabilities or diagnoses in mind for any of the colonists.
Yes and no. It's interesting because as I mentioned in chat, definitely it was fandom that just like threw the autism beam at all of my characters and said, all of your characters are autistic. And it was just like, yes, they are, definitely. Because when you're writing and you put a lot of yourself in your characters, you don't notice these things sometimes. And so that was really interesting. The only character that specifically I was like, I'm going to, try to write this character as, as with like an autistic experience was actually Nougat. Because when I was writing, oh God, my phone is now ringing again. Nope, it's not happening. So when I was writing Nougat, I was homeschooling my daughter, and like I said, COVID had just hit, and we'd just gotten an autism diagnosis for her, and so I was thrown into, my own mental health crisis during COVID, and I was homeschooling an autistic 6-year-old, and I was writing a video game, and I was doing my comics and trying to survive during 2020, and a lot of the tutoring events, it was just me trying to like process a lot of like, how do we teach this child who isn't served by the school system and the educational system that she's been given, and how do we find a way to get to her and try to teach her things? And so that was a lot of what how the tutoring events came forward, and I had like a diagnosis in mind when I was writing Nougat, but it was definitely the fandom afterwards that that was all like, did you know autism's genetic? It's like, hey, yeah, thanks for teaching me about myself, fandom. That was fun.
Yeah, that seems so accusatory.
Yeah, it's okay. It was definitely a really good experience for me to look back and to look back on these characters I'd written, and and just be like, yeah, that definitely happened. Thank you, fandom.
Yeah, I mean, they are all teenagers. They are all supposed to be struggling with themselves and, who they're going to be. And so, yeah, it does make sense that we can just slip in a little autism in every character.
Yeah.
Just,
Several people are typing. I love that. But yeah, it was important to me, and then belatedly, all of them were important to me. So that was really, really fun.
Mhm.
Amazing. I love hearing that little background. So going to shift a little bit. The game is, visually beautiful and often soft, and the colors are, almost pastel-y. But the story can take some really dark, important turns. You made a very inventive content warning guide to warn people about what could happen while not spoiling the game, which is incredible. I know Lindsay did an awesome GDC talk on it. There's been some articles written about it, praising it. What made it feel like this was a necessary thing to do? And how did you come up with the idea?
I feel like this was Lindsay's baby, really. I don't remember the actual seed of it, but I do very much remember just being like, oh no, this game's too pretty. People are gonna like be shocked and horrified and have their hearts broken accidentally. We have to do something about that. But Lindsay was the one who like figured out that it should be a content warning system.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So I just posted a link in chat to the GDC talk that I was able to give at GDC this year, where we talked about the content warning system. And I did that with Claire Saran from Silverstring Media, who talked about glitch hikers. And so we did that talk together. And definitely what happened was we had released the demo a bunch of times, and Twitch streamers would, they'd play it, and I would go and I'd watch the Twitch streams because it was the first time that my words had been, spoken out loud. And I really wanted to watch that. And we were getting, of course, everyone knows what happens in the first year, but we'd get a lot of like cozy, wholesome streamers who basically just like keep really nice, chill vibes in their channel. They'd be like, I love the art style of this game. And then like literally 30 minutes in, they get hit with child death. And they had to like, I watched them in real time, having to like, process their own emotions on camera while making money in front of chat. And like that was really, really tough. And it was good because I want to provoke sort of like a emotional reaction, but I don't want to do it by surprise. It has to be in conversation with the person who I am taking on this journey. They have to be ready and willing to come on this journey with me for me to like hurt them in very controlled ways. And so that was where the content warning system came from, because it was really late in development, and I came to Sarah and I was like, what if I just wrote a content warning system? Like, because we talked about it. Sarah had gone to a couple of talks about content warning systems, and we had put in a content warning that was just like, hey, there's some bad stuff in this, just be careful. And it wasn't enough, because people are so used to seeing content warnings that are like, it's tough, be careful, that they weren't prepared for exactly how tough it was, and then to then do it on stream. And so I was like, what if I just did it? And I sat down and I wrote out everything I could think of that was in the game that I had written and was potentially not harmful, because I don't believe that content itself can cause harm. Definitely things that would bring up difficult emotions, or would be really off-putting, or things that were just difficult to consume. I wrote everything I could, and I wrote it the same way that you would expect to click through the game. So like, you could like, I would like to know more. Okay, I'd like to know even more. Okay, I would like to be fully and completely spoiled. And so this sense of like, you could play the content warnings a little bit like a game came forward. And again, I said before, I came through fandom, and definitely the fandom way of doing things is like, I'm going to tell you what's in this, and you're going to decide if you want to read it or not. And so that was that sense of like open transparency was what I was bringing to the content warnings. And I was almost completely off the project at the time, but I was just like, I just want to do this one last thing. And Sarah took it and modified it to, reflect what had actually been kept in the game, and put it in. And I was really grateful for that. And you can see more on the GDC talk, where I talk about other forms of content warnings and other like tools in like a content warning system that you can use in your own games. So that's a lot of that's in the GDC talk as well.
Amazing. The first time I played, I ignored it, which is a very me thing to do. And I remember the exact point where I went back to it, and I was like, "Oh, I need to look at this.
What else am I in for? Oh no."
I need to take this seriously."
Yeah.
When did the card game come into the picture? And what inspired the cards to be memories?
Yeah, so I looked back, right? I was looking back through my old notes. The idea of a card game was in early, but I still wasn't sure. I was like, we need some kind of mini game, some kind of something. And I know, I feel like it was just like a conversation I was having with my husband. I do a lot of like bouncing design ideas off of him, especially like early on stuff. And I feel like we were just talking, and out of nowhere, I was just like, well, what should the cards be? I'm like, what if it kind of represents you? What if it's literally your memories? And that was, 2017, and it was written in the file, but like it took 2 more years to actually nail down a card game design. But the whole time I was just like, we need, like, the cards are you. And it's super important to be able to like reflect on yourself and who you are as you change over time, especially if you're doing multiple runs and you want to know, like, which soul am I playing? Oh, I'm the brainy soul. Oh, I'm this soul. And you want to be able to like look at your, some kind of, besides just the statistics on the side, like some kind of emotional way to like see what your journey has been. So it's kind of funny, for years, I was like, cards must be memories. What do we do with cards? Like, they were even in events and we were collecting them, and I was like, and then what? So it took the actual design a while. I'm a big fan of card games. I love Magic the Gathering. I love like kind of those versus games. So initially it was like an attack thing where you would like fight kind of an abstract idea. So you would be like fighting your fear of whatever. You'd be fighting the math test is the other example I use. But like, right. And you'd be like battling sometimes a person, but you'd just be having a conversation with them, and it wouldn't really be that big a deal. And it just didn't feel right. So I wanted a more abstract and simpler, with just less rules, that we could play faster kind of game. So yeah, there was like several iterations of it, kind of a solitaire matchy game. And then this idea of just like laying out cards and doing just like a little like poker kind of thing, best poker hand. It was like late 2019. I went to Hawaii and was playing a lot of this like random game that had like a tile placement thing, and I was like, what if these cards? And then everything came together at that point. But it was one of the most like scariest part of the game design for a long time, because I kept putting the cards in and knew they were really central and did not know what to do with them.
Yeah, you definitely agonized over that one for much more than I was privy to. I didn't touch the card game very much in terms of like what cards go where and what they mean and how the like literally the game design of the cards. And so it wasn't until the game released that I got the full brunt of the like, your cards are your memories. You succeed at this test because you're thinking about your experiences in the past. And then like being hit with that like emotional punch of like, hey, it's time to forget a card. Would you like to forget the time you learned how to walk? And it's like, oh, well, like everything is going to hell around you because like maybe you're in a genocidal war and you're like, oh yeah, I'm growing up. And that sort of like central growing up is getting new experiences and forgetting your old ones and changing as a person. Like I'm wearing a sweater, but I have chills just like thinking about that concept, and that didn't hit me until the game released. It was just very, very fun. So
yeah, I'm glad it worked out. It worked out so good, and I'm glad we went simpler with the design too. That it didn't end up being a burden for people to play who like didn't want to play Magic the Gathering or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, I'm not a deck builder. I'm not a card player. So it was part of the game where I was all like, okay, I guess if you want to make this a deck builder, that's fine. I don't have to interact with that. And then like when the game released, I was like, oh yeah, I actually think it's really cool.
I am in fact a deck builder.
I am in fact a deck builder. It's fine.
I like that the game sort of it does kind of force you to start forgetting things, because at first I was like, no, I don't want to forget that. I want to keep that memory with me forever. And then I started not doing well. I like that feature a lot. What did you hope for people to take from the game after playing it? I know that is a big open-ended kind of question, but is there anything in particular that you can think of?
Well, I know initially from looking at those notes that I was thinking a lot about like, maybe not like politics, but like, just thinking of like aspects of social relationships from different points of view. So there was a lot of like, I would like you to be able to either replay the game multiple times or just see all your choices as like actually being, like in the real world, like there are choices that people make that make them end up on opposite sides of some kind of discussion or some kind of issue. And I wanted you to be able to, look at issues from multiple sides. And I think we did manage to do that with like the main plot, but it didn't end up at all being the takeaway from the game. But I do think it's still in there. And I think the other thing that's in my notes is like people need to feel emotions. Like I want to like get them with gut punches and big feels. And that we definitely did do on like, micro levels all over the place with lots of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think about this stuff, Lindsay?
Definitely that was one of the design pillars that I had going in, was just like, we have to be able to understand a problem from so many different angles afforded to us by doing the time loop. And so there's so many things in there that it's like, why do my parents act like that? And then you do the really big thing in the prologue that changes the way that they act for the rest of the game. And you're like, I understand my parents now. And even just the process of going through a game and being like, man, my parents suck. And then later on seeing your parents experience grief or like the way they react to certain things, being like, oh, I understand. Or like growing up and being like, man, these adults are strange. I don't understand them. And then you become an adult and you realize Hal knows how to make a bomb. And you're like, okay, that's cool. And it really mirrors growing up in real life too, and realizing that people and stories exist outside your own experience. Definitely like something that I started sort of like feeling as I was writing and as the game got later and later in development was one of the takeaways that I liked was this game is sci-fi, and I've said it in other interviews, but what I really like about sci-fi is you take this massive idea that like looks really like I can approach this, I can understand this sort of, but it has this like crystal inside of it that's something that we are experiencing right now in the real world. And so it goes the other direction too, where it's like, here's this thing we're experiencing in the real world. What if I focused entirely on that and I made the entire experience about understanding this thing going on right now? And then you play the game and you're like, now I understand that thing better. Now I can come back and I can understand colonialism because, you know, maybe you don't understand it now. Or maybe you have a certain stance in it now. And then you play this game and you play it and you play it and you play it and you see it from all different angles. And you're like, oh, I think I know a little bit more now. Maybe not all of it because it's a video game, but you can bring back the sort of like skills that you've developed and your like understanding of like, oh, now maybe I will now try to understand what the other side is saying. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this in the game. Maybe like I'll use colonialism as an example because like I'm a white colonist on unceded land, but there are other people that are like, I didn't understand polyamory. I didn't understand non-binary identities. I didn't understand trans identities, and they can have the same experience because you can take that sort of like skill that you've developed by trying to understand them in a game, and maybe you can make this world a little bit better because you played a little video game, and that's what I wanted. I hope that's the takeaway for at least some people, that they feel maybe just a little bit more invested in this world. So
there's the emotions again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you succeeded. And also, I think I've seen many people say that the game also helped them discover new things about themselves, which I think is also magic. So incredible. So my last question for you before we go to questions from the chat. So get ready, chat. We're gonna start answering your questions in a minute. The fans of this game are amazing. We've said that over and over today. And they've been busy creating fan art, creating fanfic. I was curious, we were curious, if you've seen any fan creations that have changed how you thought about something in the game. If you have any sort of favorite fan interpretations that stand out.
well, I've already spoken about how everyone calling my characters autistic helped me realize some things about myself, and I'm very grateful about that. One thing that I've adopted from fandom is constellation. For me, constellation was genetically engineered faceless. Like she was just a faceless that broke free. And then the fans read what I wrote and they said, "Faceless is a gardener," and I went, "Oh, faceless is a constellation is a gardener. Yeah, yeah, she is. Thank you." So that was really cool. So that was one thing I've taken. I try not to like look too much at fandom. Like I love you so much, and I'm so glad you're here. But I try not to like have it affect too much of what I believe about the characters. Just because that the fandom is fandom, and that's not where I belong. Sadly, as much as I wish I could. But that's one thing that has come backwards and affected me and been like, yeah, that's true. So
That's great. I love whoever it was who posted the fan art just here in our thing about it was all the characters that didn't have art. Now we know what they all look like. Like I doubt any of them would have or will get art in the future. But I love that idea that, yeah, of like giving pictures to like all those random one-offs that were just named in like a single event, because some of them had much larger arcs, like some of those characters were a bigger deal that then ended up getting cut. So I don't know, it's kind of nice to see little echoes of these people that, yeah, they exist out there, right? And I want to, I love the idea that fans are writing about them too, and like bringing them into the world more.
Everyone talking about Beck in the instance in the chat is, yeah, the Beck instance is real. That was always, definitely those are old ladies who were so divorced. So yeah, there you go. That's canon confirmation for you. They had a terrible toxic relationship and it ended in flames. So that's real.
I love it. We got some confirmation in the end. And I completely agree that art blew me away when I saw it today. It was absolutely beautiful. So chat, please feel free to plop any questions that you have in the chat, and we'll pick some out and ask some as we wrap up today. What is the cat name? Mine? Oh, this is Moon. I don't know if there's another cat that we're talking about, but if you're talking about this one, this is Moon. Also, this incredible illustration of Rex. All of these have been amazing.
Yeah, these are
Thank you, May.
so good, May. These are so good.
Oh, we have a question here that's getting upvoted. So, when did Dee start getting his tattoos? Did he get them from the Helio tattoo artist, or possibly even self-applied?
Self-applied.
It definitely fits his character that he's just sitting there with like a stick and poke, like out on expedition, just like, yeah, this is what I do now. That's so funny. So I do need to preface all of this with I love that there's fan-in, and I'm really, really loath to answer a lot of like fan-in questions and like give word of God confirmation. Because what I love about the game is that if we haven't written it, go nuts, like absolutely go wild. Because it is a time loop, and we were really constrained by the fact that we were writing a video game, and we had to stop writing eventually. Like literally, Sarah had to make me stop writing. So there's a lot of things in there that really I'm glad we didn't get to, and I'm glad it exists only in fanon. So if there may be some like questions that we fully are just like, it's up to you. Like that is malleable. There's no canon explanation for a lot of things. So there may be questions that we just pass over because we do love that they're vague and that they exist in fanon. So
this one's more general. Are there any characters that you wanted to expand upon and didn't get a chance to, or feel you would have wanted to flesh out further?
Oh, I wish I could have spent more time on Vase. Vase, like I said, was the one I wrote right at the very end, and he definitely got like, I went hard on Vase. I was like, what's the worst I can make this man be? There wasn't originally supposed to be an event where he would like jump you in a cargo room and be like, I'm going to kill you. And that just sort of ended up there. And what I wish I could have done with Vase, and I would have if I had more time, because it would have been a wild amount of time to have to do this, is to do 2 routes for Vase, where if you agree with him, you never see his bad side. He's always great. He's always a hero. He's so good to you. Like, he's so good. But then there's a trigger where you piss him off enough and you see the bad side of him. You see the jealousy. You see the abuse. You see the machismo. I really wanted to have a double experience where even as a player, if you were like, I like this guy, you maybe would have never even seen the way he is around Anemone. And yeah, that was just a constraint of like what we could fit in the game at the time. So yeah, that was one thing I missed.
he was supposed to like come on to you really strong, right? And just be like, you're the one for me. And as soon as you say no thanks for any reason, then he just like, he's awful
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
He shows his dark side. But yeah, that was like that character. We were just like also didn't want to write that character at the time. It was like, we have to like, yeah.
Yeah. I was ready to do it. But then the like, I would have had to write 2 different faces.
Totally.
And it's just like, I can't. There was just no way I could do it at that point in the game because Vase touched every other event at this game at this time. So it was just like, I couldn't do it. So.
Yeah. I don't know if he ever would have really got redeemed, though. It just would have been like, there's a possibility of doing a Vase run that you never realize would have been. Only if you pick him on their first run.
Yeah. And about Vase's redemption, too, like, it was really important to me to write. I call it a redemption, even though it's not. The thing with Vase is we really wanted to avoid this idea that we could fix Vase, that the actions of one person could fix Vase. You can have a positive influence on Vase to help him, convince him to work on himself, and how that has like knock-on effects for the rest of his life in his epilogue. But it was really important that, like, much like every other element of the game, Soul couldn't fix anyone. You know, these things always happen in the epilogue, and they always are true to themselves. And so that was really important for Vase too. Was like, yeah, sometimes you can't fix this man. You can impact him, and he can have a happy life sometimes, but you can't fix him.
Tragic.
Yeah.
Folks are curious if there was any intention behind having an enemy be the first character that you interact with, more or less, even though the location would have made it be Chao. So I guess, is there intention behind the order that we meet characters?
Yeah, Anemone, well, okay. Initially, Anemone was going to be, she's just like the most childish childhood friend, I guess. Right? Like she really, like, her enthusiasm bubbles over, and she's just like, she's the one that you should really be comparing to like being 10 years old, right? Like she's just out there, everything is fun, you're on this awesome planet. Like she's just like completely enjoying it in the most like carefree, innocent way. So I wanted you to see her when you were young, for sure. And also because she does change so much, right? So she's like, I wanted her to be kind of like pinning her as like the one who represents the changes of childhood as much. But then we changed all those things that happened to Tammy. And so Tammy had to instead be the one who, like, you know, says hi to you right at the very, very beginning of the game, because like you have to know who she is. So we had to have her be like a little more. So originally it was going to be like just Anemone, and she was going to be like your kind of de facto best friend until you meet everyone else and you can make a decision. But yeah, for, I don't know, obvious narrative reasons, that she's the most childish one at age 10.
Also, Nemi's just ride or die. I do love that even if you have a bad relationship with Nemi, she still is like, I'm your friend. I'm still going to save your stupid ass. Like, she's ride or die. I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love her design. Like when I first started the game and saw the, you get the choice of who you want to be, your closest friend, and I was like, oh yeah, her. Like she's amazing.
Did you recognize her? Like, did you see that it was like the same girl from the prologue? I wonder how many people just like actually like recognize that. Like, yeah,
I did, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just wondered. Yeah, I wondered. Yeah, because I was back and forth about whether I wanted to make that like super obvious and like actually give her a name or not. But yeah.
So, feel free to say no to any of these, but these are some that I saw getting upvoted in chat. Are Sim's ears pointy for a particular reason?
Oh, right.
Is there a reason?
I think that was May being like, I love pointy ears.
Yeah, like, that was definitely, I was like elf-like, and May was like, I love elf-like.
Yeah, I just called out May. Yeah, May's laughing. Yeah, I think a lot of it was, but I like pointy ears. So I think Xeno should have pointy ears. And so that's the Doyleist explanation.
Yeah, those definitely May's call.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I like the idea that, like, yeah, because Hal, right? He's got the Tammy's dad's got the pointy ears, and he's like the head of expeditions at the start. So maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not
Um,
ears. I guess they're probably just little protrusions, eh?
Oh yeah, right. Not ears.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, why is there a hot dog boy? Because I wanted to be a hot polyamorous dog boy. That's why.
Yeah,
So
very
yeah.
important.
sometimes that's really just the answer why. So I
Yeah.
wanted to put it in the name.
Yeah.
I love this question. Does Vertumna have more life than what we've seen in terms of regions? This person wanted to know if there was aquatic life. I don't know if you want to confirm or deny that. But are there more areas we've seen the
There
world?
definitely are, but none of them got like past even the earliest design stuff, right? Like I don't think we actually reference any of it anywhere. Um, yeah, I don't know that we talked about whether there's oceans or not, but well, I think this is just a thing that you're going to have to like, expand upon yourself.
If you want there to be a biome on Vertumna, go for it. Love it.
Yeah.
I want to see it for sure.
Yeah.
Our oceans on Vertumna, that was a last minute reference from me too, because I really wanted the piece ending to have like a sort of like a hopeful, like, you did it, Dora the Explorer kind of, you did it. And that was like, yeah, they go to the ocean because that was just like the natural place for them to go. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Amazing.
Why not? We actually did have a lot of back and forth about how cold the planet is, right? Because there's like
Yeah.
snow, but is it cold snow or warm snow? I'm not even sure where exactly we landed on this, like how cold it gets there. I mean, Rex is walking around in that shirt like every day of the year.
Yeah.
So
Don't ask me about how bromidic snow works. Okay. You get one Wikipedia article in me, and I just go and I say, oh, it's not science, it's a different planet. Wormhole magic. So that happens.
Yeah. I read so much about that stuff to pick like the word bromidic or whatever, right? And then in the end, it was just like, none of this makes any sense. It'd probably be toxic and poisonous, but I don't want them wearing gas masks. So yeah.
Let's not think of what it does to the plant life or how the plant life would have evolved to deal with it.
Yeah.
I absolutely, if you had unleashed me, I would have learned it, but I definitely had to be like, you know what, wormhole magic. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it work like this? Because the gardeners say it does. So, yeah.
I spent a bunch of time trying to model their star system in what's that one called? Universe Sandbox. Like trying to actually make their like binary star with all the planets, and there's Vertumna, and it just kept exploding. It kept spinning off into whatever. So I was like, I'm still saying that it can happen, right? Like the blue sun rises in the morning, and then the yellow, and then they have seasons where the blue sun's more dominant. Yeah, just don't think too hard about it.
Someone called me out for calling the blue sun cooler. Sorry, I'm not an astrophysicist.
Right? Yeah, I know, exactly.
I didn't know blue wasn't colder.
Wormhole science.
Wormhole science, yeah.
Wormhole science.
Wormhole really loves the color blue and sucks all the heat into other parts of the universe. I don't know.
I liked this question. Folks were curious about how you made decisions on the soundtrack and working with Francis Aravel for it, The Child You Were, in the ending sequence. Thoughts behind that?
That was awesome. The soundtrack just came together so quickly. Francis's song was like, I think I was just on Bandcamp maybe, and just browsing new releases and just being like, who's doing what, and like literally looking for. I was like, I need, kind of a moody rock song with some kind of lyrics, and it was the absolute perfect song, and I couldn't believe it. And I wrote Francis, and like by the end of the week we had a deal. It was so good. Like it was existing music. It just like I heard it, and it seemed perfect to me. And that is how 50% of that soundtrack came together. Is I was just thinking about Exocolonist, and I was like, I have to figure out the soundtrack in this 6-month period. And I just wandered around, like hearing the world. Literally, Kiyoshi, who does the like handpan on it, he was busking in Vancouver, and I just passed by him, and I was just like, that's the sound of Exocolonist. Like that's how so much of the soundtrack came together. Is I was immersed in the world and would just hear a thing somewhere. So yeah, like Boris's all of the atmospheric pieces for the exploration areas were the same way. I was like listening to a friend's Twitch stream, and he played a little bit of this, and it was Boris like actually like making the music on the fly, and I was like, that song needs to go in my game. And like by 2 days later, that song was like in Exocolonist. So I don't know how EXO got so lucky that all of this stuff just came together. And then the other half was like, now we had these already preset ones, and then got mostly just friends of mine or friends of Gord to write the other half of it, and just like come up with pieces that kind of filled in the gaps, and like earlier childhood pieces and later darker pieces and stuff. But it was just I don't know, magic. It felt like, yeah, like something wanted the soundtrack to just come together for us. I didn't feel like any kind of purpose. It just happened.
Amazing. I liked this question for you, Sarah. You make big, complex, incredible games with many great ideas. Is it tempting to ever make a simple game?
I did make a game once that nobody played called Word Up Dog. That's just like you dig up letters and then you spell, and that's it. That's the whole game. And it's very cute and very simple, and nobody played it. I think you might be able to just like go download it for free on mobile right now. But yeah, I had a simple game of me once, and that was a long time ago.
Once. I love that.
One time.
One time.
People talking about the D scene where he's lying on the ground. I can share that used to be, he was listening to like Nirvana. Like he was listening to like rock. And then Sarah found the Child You Were and was like, well, it's this song now. And so Sarah rewrote that event to make it, he was actually listening to a song. So we had that cool diegetic moment.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, we didn't get to do as much audio work as we would have liked. There was just so many pieces to this very big game, and I know Em and A Shell of the Pit like really wanted to do more with the audio. Like we could have had cues going all the time, like sound effects happening when things happen, and it was just way too much to put together. But that was one thing where we got to like cue the music to play at the right time, and it turned out really nicely.
You're right, chat. He absolutely is listening to My Chemical Romance. I was wrong. It's My Chemical Romance. I'm old, and my like touchstone is Nirvana. But you're right. It's My Chemical Romance for sure. I like the question in here about the old gardeners. Sarah, do you want to talk about the way gardeners used to be?
Oh man, they went through a lot of changes. The earliest version of the gardeners, they were like actual aliens, right? And they had like different casts and different ideas, and there was a lot of wormhole magic stuff, and it was just too obvious. It was just like way too obvious. And so I feel like we started drawing mushrooms was the thing. Like that might have been in Sarah Webb's early concept art, but like May was really into it, and we just like kept, mushrooms became a thing. And then Lindsay, you were like at some point you were like, the what's it called? The trees are all connected via the mushrooms under the earth, and everything is kind of connected like that. And then at some point we were just like a computer is connected, and wanted to like
a lot of the world building computer. A lot of the world building really happened as we were writing it, because you had ideas. You were like, there's a planetary force that is antagonistic to the colonists. And that was kind of like all we knew going in, because that was why you brought me on. You're like, this is a mess and I don't know what to do. And so we were able to mind meld and figure out what that meant. And we kept on discovering things like, oh yeah, the pollen disease is is part of this. It's part of this network, and it refreshes, the communication connection. And we kept on finding ways to connect things, which is my favorite thing to do as a writer, is to like make the connections and make these explanations. So that was really cool. The Gardeners went through a bunch of different iterations themselves. Like they were we always had the aliens on the planet, and for a while they were like worm people, and for a while they were like extant on the planet, like they existed and they were the force. And then the writing got darker, and the writing got darker, and the writing got darker. And I think it was definitely like in conversation with some of our sensitivity readers that were like, "Hey, we can't have a genocide plot if there's extant indigenous people on this planet. Like, you can't do that." We were like, "Absolutely, we already didn't like it." And so that was the Gardeners came forward a lot more, and the convergent domain receded. And that was really cool, because that opened up this idea of like what the convergent domain had done to Vertumna, way for us to also look back on what humanity is doing to Earth. And it was just really easy to like, it just made the story incredibly strong to be able to draw that parallel as well. So the end game and who the antagonists exactly are and their motivations were super in flux almost all the way to the end of the game. Yeah. I mean, even the Green Vertumna, the ending itself, was one of the changes. Was it used to be Instance was the person behind Green Vertumna, and there was a much stronger like radicalization pipeline for Tang. Like Dees was being radicalized by the Gardeners and being like, "You should come like do stuff," and Tang was being radicalized by Instance, and their conjoined, like their mirrored stories were about how isolated children who are looking for acceptance and support and love will reach out to the closest figure that gives them that validation. And Dees found it in the Gardeners, and Tang found it in Instance. And then we realized that we needed to move the blame for the plague to Lum rather than Instance, and that changed the way Instance related to Tang. So
Lum,
that was a big change.
Lum got so much darker. There's like some big scenes where he gets up on stage and just does horrible things or says horrible things that like it's like where originally he was just going to be like a little more of like a bumbling guy who just like decides that war is the way because he just like doesn't have imagination, and instead we just made him like full fascist. So it made sense to move more of the blame onto that guy, just to like
he definitely devolved more and more into fascism the more deeper into 2020 we got, because we were just like, that was a thing, this is a thing that is actually happening. So he definitely started reflecting more and more of what we were feeling about the world and politics at the time. Bumbling and scary at the same time was just like, look, it could be both. And then again, if you play enough and then you get to play again and you actually do the administrative assistant ending, and you kind of realize that yes, he's still evil and an asshole and his methods are bad, but he also has a reason for doing what he does. Like, he's not just comically evil on his own, even though a lot of the reviews about Lum are like, he's just a cartoonishly evil fascist, you're wearing your politics on your sleeve. It's like, yeah, I know, but even fascists have reasons for doing what they're doing. And so that was kind of because fascism isn't always black boots and little hats and marching in order. Fascism is mundane, banal, very, very boring sometimes, and it's very, very focused on like things that sometimes feel good at the time, being like safety and community and tradition and things like that. And so being able to, that was another one of the things that I wanted to use the sci-fi story of Exocolonist to be like, look at these things blown up really large. Hey, aren't they a little bit like the things you see in real life? And so to have people be like, oh yeah, that's actually happening. So yeah, I do love Himbo Lum though. My favorite thing is when streamers meet him for the first time, they make noises at him, and then the second he opens his mouth, it's like, I'm gonna make him worse. So yeah.
Amazing. So we are almost out of time, which I can't believe. I could talk to you all for I think 5 hours and not feel it. um, I do want to see. Did you want to announce the results of the survey, Plushie,
Oh, right.
Sarah?
Yeah, for
I
sure.
know
Yeah.
folks are curious.
Yeah. We can call this as like the end of it. Yeah. So we had, I'll look at the stats here. We had 3,000 people, the exact number at this exact moment. 3,035 people answered. The number one person that people wanted was Soul. Maybe that's kind of obvious. That was like 60% of people were like, give me a Soul. I'm going to skip down to the number one creature was the Vriki. Everyone loves the Vriki. And also, I feel like we had demands for Vriki plushies before. Like, we kind of knew Vriki.
Although
So,
my special son got a lot of write-in votes.
Yeah, exactly. So like partway through, I added Faceless because it got so many write-up votes. So the Vriki got 72%. Faceless ended up at like 29, like 30% of people wanted the Faceless. So it was not nothing. Faceless beat the Unisaur. But yeah, number 2 was Dilly Pillar, and number 3 was a Hop Eye. And then should I read out all the people? I feel like this could be contentious. Everyone has their favorites. All right, so number 2 after Soul was Dees at 43% of people. Then Rex, 38. Then Sim, that was 37. Nomi's 34, which I feel like Nomi should maybe be higher because Nomi's outfits are just so good. Like I really want a plushy form Nomi, and I feel the same way about Mars, who was way down near the bottom at 14%. I think everyone's wrong about Mars. I think she looks amazing. I would love a Mars plushie. But after Nomi was Tangent, then Tammy, then Anemone, Cal, Mars and Base, and there was enough write-ins for Utopia that Utopia gets an honorable mention too. So that's everybody's favorite, at least what people want a plushie of in order. And I think I'm about to post this on the on Steam or something as well, so you'll have the numbers there. But I mean, we are moving forward on plushies. I'll let you guys know when there's like more information about it. Yeah, but I got the confirmation today that things are go, and yeah, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how many we might get to make as well. So yeah, I don't know. Lots of people said they would buy both a creature and a person if that was a thing. So that's what we're going to try to do.
Amazing. I say I would. Amazing. Thank you all so much for this conversation and for creating one of my favorite games of all time. Happy 1-year anniversary. This is amazing. I hope, chat, that you got some of your questions answered. By all means, we're going to keep Ask the Devs up, talk to each other, answer each other's questions. If any of the team wants to pop in and answer, they're welcome to, but no pressure. But I think that the moral of the story is if you want it to be canon, make it canon. You know.
Yeah, definitely. You can decide.
But thank you so much. Was there any last words? Anything you wanted to leave us with? Pressure, but it's there if you want to say anything.
Tell your friends. That's how we're going to keep doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much for this incredible talk. It warmed my heart. I'm so honored to have hung out with y'all today. And May, thank you for this art. I need them all over my wall. So yeah, bye everybody. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you in the Vertumna festival channels. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you for an amazing year.